See, the whole idea about stem cell transplantation and the whole concept is dubious for a very simple reason, because in our body it is like that. In every organ, side by side, are living and developing cells, like the same hepatoblasts, of different generations, that can be 35 generations up and down. So they're starting from stem cells, then the very young ones, and older ones, and older ones, and older ones, and they live, in that cluster of cells, see. And that is exactly what we are implanting to the patients, because you are taking a small piece of this organ, you plant in a tissue culture, and this is kind of slightly growing. But in reality, what you are going to be giving the patient, you will be giving the patient a combination of cells of different generations, from the same family, but different generations, you see, including stem cells. So that is what really is being implanted, and was implanted in the old cell therapy, in Germany. And what actually are we doing? And that is actually what works, you see. Nobody has actually been able to prove that the embryonic, stem cells work. Because in reality, that part, nobody is publishing. As I explained, there are, I don't know how many today, but there were these 6, very well-funded companies on the NASDAQ, that were funded by between $100 and $300 million, but they never treated patient. So so there was no way to know what these people are doing, and because the standard obstacle was FDA did not give us an approval. So I was already through it, before, so it wasn't surprising to me, but if even companies like that, and I'm of opinion that these major companies that were on Wall Street, that the $100 to $300 million did not come from individual investors that did not know anything about this. This money was coming from a very rich source. And who is the richest? Who is richer than the US government? Is the pharmaceutical industry. So they are controlling the situation on both ends. The important thing is that these cells can be implanted without any immunosuppression. It's very important to realize also that in that cell cluster or the accumulation of the cells that we are using for implantation, there is much more interaction between the cells that that one can imagine, because the cells do communicate by direct contact, okay, and by various biochemical substances, but also by electromagnetic association. Okay, so the electromagnetics are playing the part everywhere, except that because it has never been recognized in this particular therapy, it doesn't make much sense to speak about it, because you are just confusing the issue. In 2004, US FDA kind of surprised everybody by declaring that the human embryonic stem cell transplants actually are classified by them as cell xenotransplants, originating from the animal origin reason, because the embryonic stem cells will not grow on a regular culture. You have to place on the culture a layer of animal cells, preferably from mice, which is called feeder layer. And these mouse cells, were like feeding the embryonic cells, which otherwise, would not survive, because they could not take a nutrition or accept nutrition. Okay, and because the FDA could not determine what actually was doing therapeutically good to the patient, whether the embryonic human cells or the feeder cells from mice, so they declared that the decision was that they will be all declared to be of animal origin. Now, that proves you, the reason I'm saying this, proves only one point, that they came to the decision that human embryonic cells don't work at all, because otherwise they could not make such a decision, in my personal opinion. I already spent a lot of time previously explaining that why the animal fetal precursor stem cells are actually as effective as human, and safer. I explained to you this whole situation about the closed colony and so on and so forth. Now, this is, first of all, it is an absolutely well-known fact that there have been never a single case of death from the using of animal precursor fetal stem cells, okay? Not a single case. And the pharma industry tried vigorously in Germany to, to suppress this treatment for decades, all right? And but eventually it came to one point that that they analyzed every single case of every German patient that might have had complication from cell therapy. Okay. From all of these cases, the conclusion was there was one case where the death might have been as a result of cell therapy. And this patient died of a disease called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease is the same thing like kuru-kuru in New Guinea, among the people that eat other people's as the victims and so on and so forth. And it is a disease which has extremely long incubation period, years. And as a result of it, it's truly virtually impossible to determine whether, if this type of association is possible. But simply there was one case where they declared plus minus that this patient might have developed, might have died of this disease as a result of cell therapy, but in reality, they absolutely nobody was able to, prove or conclude with this definition. Now, the last attempt was made in 1997, when the pharmaceutical industry convinced the German government that the so-called fresh cell therapy, when the cells are prepared immediately and immediately implanted, actually is harmful. So the case, when this popped up, the group of clinics that was practicing this type of medicine, 11 of them, united for the first time in history and hired the best constitution lawyer of Germany, took the case to court. Automatically we went to the Supreme Court because it was against the government. And the case dragged on for 3 years. After a review of the case, the Supreme Court said, okay, we will accept the complaint, but now we are asking the government to give us any and all medical records of any and all patients that allegedly had any kind of complication from fresh cell therapy. 6 months waiting, not a single chart popped up. Another 6 months, another 6 months, altogether 6 times this was repeated. In 6 years, the German government was unable to produce single medical record. So in February of year 2000, the German Supreme Court decided, government, you have no case. So the situation, the treatment is allowed in Germany and continues. And so now I don't think this kind of thing. The advantage of that was one. Before that, they were constantly attacked in the media, claiming that these patients must be dying of immune reactions. This patient must be getting the infections from animals and so on and so forth. So that is impossible, but they could not prove it, you see.